So Mathabo, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Neil.
But before we start, before we walk into the future, Mathabo, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
So I am a girl from Soweto. I grew up in the township of Soweto. I was raised by a single mother of four. I did my whole schooling there, my primary school and my high school. And I later on went to study at Wits University, and where I did my BCom degree, and I went on to become a chartered accountant.
And tell us, Mathabo, what was your dream career when you grew up?
I always wanted to become a doctor. I had a deep sense of passion for helping people, and I thought that is where my calling was going to be fulfilled initially. But also, if you know, growing up in a township environment, there's only a specific set of careers that you know. So you know, being a nurse, being a doctor, being a teacher, being a policeman, because that's what you're exposed to. So for me, being a doctor seemed very prestigious at the same time. And I thought definitely that's what I was going to be.
And tell us, Mathabo, who inspired you in your early days?
I think I've always thrived really on intrinsic motivation. I believe it was really fueled by my upbringing. So I had a very difficult upbringing. Things were extremely difficult, and I knew from an early age that I needed to do something different to change my future. So growing up in poverty, you know what it does is that it skews what you know as reality, but also what you think is possible. So as we almost always dream from a point of what is feasible under the current circumstances. So poverty really steals away the ability to dream. So I drew a lot of inspiration from reading. That's where my early inspiration came from. I used to read any book I could get my hands on because it opened up my mind to believing that there is a bigger place outside of a township setting. There's a bigger world outside of my current circumstances. That's basically that was my escape and my first glimpse into a different reality, and my dreams started forming from there. But later on in my career, my mentor, Serame Maetle, was a very big inspiration for me. He pushed me quite a lot, and he spent a lot of time trying to make me understand my potential as a business leader and how to tap into that. So he really relentlessly reminded me how great I am and how great I can be. And he didn't stop until I believed it. So it's definitely the people around me that have contributed immensely into inspiring me to become better, to do better. But a lot of my early inspiration came from books, from fictional characters that I hadn't met, which made me believe that there's a life out there beyond my current reality.
Now, Mathabo, you recently won two very prestigious awards, the SAICA 35 under 35 and the YCL, the Authentic Leadership Awards. Can you tell us a little bit more about these awards?
Yes, so I actually won the YLC Authentic Leader Award first, early last year. And basically, it's Young Leaders Connect is an organization that is a baby organization from IWF, which is International Women's Forum South Africa, which is a very prestigious organization with prominent leaders. So what YLC is looking to do is recognize and honor young women leaders that are, leading authentically, but also chattering the way forward for women empowerment, uplifting of girls, solving for issues that affect women in society. At the same time, I also won the Lift Up Leader in Business, which was recognizing me for my work that I do with small businesses in the mining communities in my role at Harmony Gold. So that was the sort of the first major recognition, I think, for some of the work that I had done over the past couple of years, over 5 years or so. Moving on to the SAICA one, the top 35 under 35 competition looks at chartered accountants in the country that are doing great work in their fields, in their areas of expertise, but also doing work that positively influences communities that they operate in, that changes industries that they are in, and to be crowned, I guess, as the overall winner. And just to give you context, there's apparently about 17,000 chartered accountants under the age of 35. And last year they got about 1,000 applications. So to then come out and be crowned the winner, that was definitely an honor for me, but also a reflection of, you know, the work that I've done in the industries that I'm in.
Now, Mathabo, you've risen through the ranks at some very big brands like Tiger Brands and Harmony Gold. Looking back over your career, would you say there was a turning point, or maybe a number of turning points, where things could have gone different?
Absolutely. I think the biggest turning point for me must have been 5 years ago when I moved into Harmony, and I moved into a role that was very closely aligned to my own personal goals and passion. And that was a pivotal turning point in the trajectory of my career. So like I've always had a passion for people, and any work that brings me close to interacting really is close to my heart, and you know, it was sort of the best breeding ground for me to perform. And being able to affect 44,000 lives at Harmony Health and close to 70,000 lives at Mine Workers Provident Fund, and even more families, you know, through preserving their livelihoods at the pension fund and ensuring that miners retire with adequate funding. That gave me a new meaning into my work. So that then cultivated a deeper sense of purpose as a leader, but also gave me personal satisfaction. And that's when I realized that where your career meets your own personal goals, that's the intersection where you thrive. So if I had to pinpoint the exact point where for my career was definitely when I joined Harmony.
And Mathabo, tell us, what is driving you today?
It's very simple: changing people's lives, leaving society better than I found it, creating an environment where my daughter will thrive in, but also creating an environment where my daughter will not be assigned disadvantages at birth, you know, purely based on their gender. That's definitely what is driving me today.
Now, Mathabo, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
As young professionals who will ultimately become leaders in society, I think we need to embrace that leadership is a role that requires a lot out of us in today's, you know, environment, in addressing many issues, you know, issues such as gender inequality, climate change, poverty, you know, the digital divide, many other social issues, while providing value for all stakeholders, monetary and non-monetary. So we need to respond and lead organizations in such a way that we leave the world better off than we found it. This is a new kind of leader required in all of us, one that is constantly evolving, one that is agile, has a deep sense of empathy, a leader that is cognizant of the environment, and above all, has the courage and the heart to make the tough decisions to benefit the largest amount of people. Millennials and Gen Zs are requiring more from the world of work. They also want meaning and purpose attached to what they do, and not just financial rewards. And as a leader trying to inspire this group of people to become the best version of themselves so that they can go out there, you know, and do greater things, will ultimately lead to, you know, great outcomes for society as a whole. So that's where I see the future of leadership is. It's really moving into a servant kind of leadership, tapping into our empathy, ensuring that we're not single-minded as leaders, and bringing people along, you know, having a great sense of community in how we execute our roles in these organizations.
And Mathabo, tell us, what have you learned from your own leadership journey, that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons, particularly in the last 3 years, I think with the pandemic and everything that spilled over from that. But I think what stands out for me is that as future leaders, it's important to unearth and understand the driving point for a leader. We need to understand, their passion and understand their why. Like, why do they wake up in the morning? Why do they do the work that they do? Because this will be the constant guide and true north in maintaining ethical, authentic leadership. This is who, as a person, you are, regardless of the job that you're in or the organization that you're in. It moves with you, and it's not purely a function of circumstance. I think at times we have great leaders purely because they are in the environment allows it. But we need to understand that ethical leadership and authentic leadership is really inside of you. It's intrinsically who you are. And for example, I advocate for transformation and inclusion, regardless of which organization I'm at, or even which level I'm at, whether I'm a senior manager or whether I'm a junior. For me, it doesn't matter. So I go the extra mile on issues that affect my people because I believe it is my calling. So that's what I've learned is that when we're building these future leaders, let's unearth and understand what drives them. The second thing I think that I've learned is that but particularly in the environment that I grew up in, we were taught to strive for excellence and success. So success of an individual, which is basically looking at the advancement of self. Because again, I guess these are the role models we had growing up. I mean, I used to want to drive a BMW Z4 because in the township at that time, that was the biggest measure of success. But yet, when you ask people, what do they want to be remembered for? A lot of the times they'll say, I want to be remembered for how I made people feel or, for changing people's lives. So as an emerging leader, we need to unlearn, I guess, the concept of individual success, which was drilled into us for so long, but start pursuing, I guess, collective significance. And I'm glad that, that has landed with me early on in my career and in my leadership journey, such that I could still cultivate it going forward. For me, this is the most unlearning and relearning that needs to happen in your leadership journey. Understand that leadership really is a life of service.
Now, Mathabo, these are challenging times. And what is your advice for future leaders? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
There's a lot of challenges, but if I can just pinpoint one, is that something that has stuck with me, which I heard recently, was that great leaders lead leaders and not followers. So as a leader, you need to rally people around you that are smarter than you. You need to, you mustn't strive to always be the smartest person in the room. You need to be able to build great teams and inspire your teams to be the greatest version of themselves. A lot of things that I have achieved, I must say, have been through my teams, whether at Harmony or, on the boards that I sit on. It has always been having great teams around you and leveraging off those teams, selling a vision and then buying into it. So the biggest challenge as a future leader would be strive to build great teams, but also ensure that you're leading great leaders, other leaders that will go on and make impact on your behalf. And that is how we unlock the next level of leadership.
Now, Mathabo, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
I think when we talk about leadership, we have focused so much and for a very long time on IQ and on EQ as determinants for potential success in leadership. However, I think the emergence of AQ, which is the adversity quotient, which is basically a measure of resilience, and the leader's capability and capacity to recover quickly and bounce back from challenges is critical in today's curriculum. So we need to be able to start ensuring that leaders that come through development, etc., also ensure that they develop their adversity quotient. I mean, the past 3 years, leading the investment subcommittee at Mine Workers Provident Fund, where we were managing the portfolio for pensioners, for mine workers' pensions, operating the global markets landscape with initially the pandemic hitting the markets and destabilizing portfolios. Subsequent to that, the impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, the impact of rising inflation, threats of looming recessions. I mean, worse in a South African context, we have low economic growth, we have load shedding, and just general political uneasiness in the country. You need to have a leader that is able to roll with the punches. You need to have a leader that is able to recover quickly from setbacks, you know, a person that doesn't dwell on spilled milk and ensure your people are taken care of. I think that is the skill I believe will ensure long-term success. And as young leaders, we need to work on that just as much as we work on our IQ and our EQ.
Mathabo, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yes. So as part of my journey, I have had great mentors really put in their time and effort into my development, and it has shaped me into the leader that I am and the leader that I'm becoming. So I definitely feel and firmly believe that, you know, it is our responsibility to pay it forward, lift as we rise. So mentorship and having, you know, my own mentees is something that I do consistently. Recently, one of my mentees landed a project that she had been wanting to work on for a while. And the feedback that she gave me was that our conversations have really helped her step into her power and speak up more. And that's how she got the opportunity. And, you know, that just, you know, gave me the validation that, you know, we're doing incredible work with her. My other mentee was doing really well as well, but was in a position that was not challenging her and she had to let it go. And as a mentor, I had to realize that at times there might be a conflict between what's good for your mentee and the organization that you're serving, because we were in the same organization. But at that time, and all the time, it is important to allow people to choose what's best for them so they show up as the best version of themselves. And I assisted her in, you know, trying to get a new job, and she's currently thriving elsewhere and well on her way to cultivating her leadership journey. So really mentorship is really about the person, and it's quite important that we are, you know, mentoring the next generation of leaders as we are growing in our own leadership journey.
And Mathabo, looking back over your leadership journey and maybe your learning journey, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should study and learn from?
Yes, definitely. Mteto Nyati's leadership for me and his commitment to servant leadership really resonated with me. I was first introduced to him as part of my MBA class in a case study. And since then, I've been following his leadership, and he's such an incredible leader. He really weaves in the concepts of Ubuntu into his leadership and really being a servant at what you do. So definitely I'd recommend him. But it's definitely very important. I think touching on what we've just spoken about, it's important for every leader to have their own mentors as well. Have a group of leaders that you look up to and learn from. And like I said, I have a group of powerful women whom I am learning from, and they're shaping my journey as well. Your Trifosa Romanos, your Cindy Mabaso Koyanas, so great, powerful chartered accountants that have, you know, done incredible things in the industry, and for Black women chartered accountants in South Africa that I get to learn from and I get to call my mentors, you know, just to name a few. So that has been very, very helpful.
Now, Mathabo, where can our listeners follow you and how should they connect with you?
Yeah, so I guess my LinkedIn page and my Instagram page are the best platforms I'm using at the moment. I do a few conferences, predominantly on issues of transformation, diversity, equity, and inclusion in financial services. I also do a lot of talks around women empowerment and gender inequality. So, if anybody wants to, share ideas, collaborate on anything, definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn at any point.
Thank you. And last but not least, Mathabo, what is your advice for the millions of learners who are looking to finish school, to enter the world of work? What are maybe one or two success factors that they should keep in mind?
That, I think they need to keep in mind that leadership is simply living a life of service to others. I think if I had known that earlier, that would have been very helpful in navigating my journey. Then for the longest of time, I was pursuing a life of success. I want to be successful, I want to be rich, have a big house. But that doesn't bring you fulfillment. Fulfillment is what you have on the inside, and it's what you bring to work, and that is how you lead.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and inspiring so many future leaders.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nick, for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation.